Last thing, can we do anything with exchange rates to possibly bring the economy back? Well, we got some internal dissonance there as well. If you have a cheaper value of the dollar, it tends to, or what you're trying to do is stimulate exports. On the other hand, a country like the United States that's been living on foreign capital, and we're a net debtor nation in that we have $6 trillion more foreign investment in the U.S. than we have abroad. Well, if you now start to embark on a policy of making your currency, like China, of making your currency cheaper so you can sell more product to get out of the recession, well, the foreign capital is going to leave because they're holding their wealth denominated in dollars. So if you're a reserve currency country, you can't use cheap exchange rate policy and do a China-type policy to make yourself an exporter again because the capital will leave. So we're stuck there. So we're stuck on all fronts. We can't do any more fiscal policy effectively. We can't. Maybe we could do it, but it's not having an effect. We can't do monetary policy has reached the wall. Exchange rate policy is out of the question for a country that's a net debtor nation because foreign capital and our capital will leave. And if you think we have a problem funding the federal deficit now, it becomes so much worse. So we've exposed ourselves to capital outflow risk. By the way, what the market is doing is the dollar is going down because the market has already figured out what the sovereign risk problems are, and capital is moving to the emerging nations. So we're pretty much up against the wall. Now, there are a few things we can do, which might be the last Section 10, policy alternatives. But somehow or other, it's too offbeat, or what, it just seems too out of the box to contemplate it. And I discussed it last summer, but I'll throw it out again. We have this housing overhang that's creating all kinds of problems in terms of crushing wealth, crushing the market value of financial institution assets. And the best thing we can do there is demolish and use some of the TARP money to buy up from foreclosed houses. You could buy, let's say at $100,000 a piece, you can buy, I forgot, I ran the numbers once. I think it's not that bad. I mean, the TARP money was $700 billion. By the way, about $400 billion of the TARP money has been paid back. With that $400 billion, you could buy probably half the housing overhang and demolish it. And firm up housing prices, firm up wealth, firm up the market underlying collateral value of the assets of the financial institutions. But it's just too almost seemingly un-American to use $400 billion of taxpayer money to demolish houses. I don't think that'll fly, although it's rational to do it. The other way to do it, and the problem with the banking system is not a scarcity of liquidity. They have it in abundance. They have a scarcity of capital. Now, what we did with the large banks is the government bought the stock. We got very little of it in the payoff. Maybe, I think, when you're buying stock of an entity that's about to go bankrupt and only charge them 17% is absurd. But our Secretary of the Treasury was very proud that he got a 17% return on his investment in Solomon. He should have owned 3/4 of Solomon as a result of, otherwise the alternative was they were insolvent. But in any event, the other possibility is the other banks. Now, aside from, you don't have to actually, by the way, we could have a market solution, which they're resisting. And the market solution to having solvent banks who can make loans is charter new banks. And I have heard of 3 cases in 3 parties of individuals going through the hard work of applying for a bank charter, have it approved, and told by the comptroller of the currency, we're putting your approval on the shelf, and we're going to only call you up when we have a bank for you to buy that we've taken over. In other words, no one, and the reluctance is overwhelming given the behavior of the government in past instances when people bought distressed banks, when they finally owned them and found out that the assets were so much less than what they were purported to be when they bought them, that virtually no one will go down that path. So we should be in bank charter mania. New fresh capital, new banks, instead of taking people who are applying for banks and turning them down. So basically, it could be, the banks could get recapitalized with private capital. We don't need TARP money. but we're resisting that too. So that's where we stand. On top of that, we have another problem, and that is if indeed we do end up closing those 2,000 banks, Sheila Blair put the number at $400 to $500 billion in additional government deficits. In other words, they have a lot of credit. The line of credit of the FDIC with the government is $400 billion. So then we'd have to finance another $400 billion on top of the $1.4 trillion. Are you ready for one more, last one, on how bad it is? Can you handle one more? We thought we were fiscally prudent. And for many years, between about 1935 and 1965, Social Security taxes were invested in treasuries so that we actually had a pot to pay the benefits. Now we're getting close to the time when we're going to have to go take the assets out of that pot and sell them to pay those benefits. What assets are in the pot? More treasuries. No, it's not zero. There's treasuries. But at a time when we're trying to sell so many treasuries to make good on the Social Security fund that we thought was all funded and taken care of, we got to sell more treasuries to the public. The public has to absorb the entire Social Security pot, which is about a 10-year payout. Well, they're going to get only a fraction of a penny for it. They're going to get pennies on the dollar because they're competing with so much other government debt trying to be sold at the same time. So here we thought we had Social Security taken care of for about the first 10 years of the baby boomer generation. And guess what? We probably only have it taken care of for the first few years of it. And then we're, basically it was a strategic mistake to the extent that they taxed and they invested. They should invest in private securities, not government securities. Although that becomes very difficult politically to do. But that's what they did was create yet another net seller of treasuries, which is Social Security Administration. So and those treasuries have to be absorbed by the private market, just like the other governments. So that's pretty much where we stand. I rest my case, and I thank you for sticking this out. As I promised, we're going to have a Q&A, so please come on up here if you have a Q&A, and let me get the mic on.